Greetings and welcome to today's meeting of the Commonwealth Club of California. I am Adria Breyer, a member of the club's Health and Medicine member-led forum and the chair of today's program. It is my pleasure to now introduce John Gray, Ph.D. John, this is such a pleasure for me. John is the best-selling relationship author of all time and perhaps the most trusted voice in relationships today. He's the author of 17 books, including the #1 New York Times bestseller, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, which has sold over 50 million copies worldwide. That just makes me laugh. I think if you look at Webster's dictionary, if you had something that said relationship, it should say John Gray next to it, and the second one should say Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. To quote Wikipedia, you must be from another planet if you've not heard of John Gray and his Mars-Venus universe. In the groundbreaking new book, which is outside, Venus on Fire, Mars on Ice, Hormonal Balance, The Key to Life, Love, and Energy, John reveals the connections between hormone levels and happiness and advises men and women to harness the connections between stress, blood sugar, body fat, and behavior to create lifelong passion and better health. I might add that this is a really unique approach because oftentimes people talk about relationships on a cognitive level. John is bringing it to us on a level that we can understand via our bodies relating to our minds and bringing that all into relationship. That's pretty remarkable. He's an internationally recognized expert in the field of communication and relationships, and we all have access to his books, CDs, DVDs, and private seminars. He's been doing this for over 35 years. On his website, marsvenus.com, you have access to all of this as well. I might say that I've been privileged to attend 2 of his seminars, and he just knocks your socks off. On the events page of his website, you can find those as well. Some of them are indeed local. We also have to thank John's wife, Bonnie, because through John, Bonnie has allowed him to share their personal experiences, so we know that he's not just a god, he actually is a human being. Summit Entertainment has recently purchased the rights to John Gray's bestseller with the intention of creating a film and TV series. They're expecting that to be released in 2012, and that should be amazing. He's a popular speaker on national and international lecture circuits. He's been on Oprah, Dr. Oz, CNN, Good Morning America, Larry King Live, you name it, he's probably been there. He's been profiled in major publications across the United States and lives with his wife and children in Northern California. Once again, if you want to know more, it's marsvenus.com, and there will be a book signing and selling after the event. It is my great pleasure to introduce John Gray to you.
Well, it's a great pleasure to be here again at the Commonwealth Club, and I'm holding a card which is just the date of my next seminar. When people hear about I do seminars, they think a 1-hour talk. Tonight is a 1-hour talk, but a seminar is like 3 days, and I don't stop talking. It's quite fun. I've got lots to say, having written 17 books, and I'm going to focus tonight on a fun book, helpful for people, called Venus on Fire, Mars on Ice. And when I tell that to women, they go, oh yeah, Venus on Fire sounds really good, female empowerment, all that good stuff. And I go, well, not exactly. And they kind of go, Mars on Ice, what's that? You know, and what I'm meaning by that is the phenomena which is occurring today has maybe never occurred in history. And it is that our stress levels are dramatically off the chart. So let's imagine we lived in a village and we didn't have much food and we were very poor and occasionally there was a war. Most days our stress levels would be very, very low. And today, we have all these luxuries and all these cars and all these communication devices and so forth. You think that all that connection would lower our stress. But what's proven is that it raises our stress and that we are more stressed than ever before. And this is proven. You can take a stress hormone test, and this is the hormone cortisol, it's our stress hormone. And it's how we respond to stressors in the environment. And if you take the cortisol levels of a woman in the workplace, these are averages, not every woman, but an average, and a man in the workplace, her stress levels are twice as high as his. Now what does that mean? Well, we're going to learn a little bit what that means. And then what they found is that when she comes home, approaching the front door, her stress levels from work double again. which many women go, yes, I know, I'm there. And I would suggest that they may even go a little higher because they just tested it when she got home. But then all it takes is for her to go into the kitchen and start making dinner, if that's what she's doing, and she happens to be married. She'll look over on the couch, and this guy's sitting there. And she goes, why is he sitting there? Why does he get to sit there? How could he just sit there? Doesn't he see everything that needs to be going on? And then her stress levels may triple after that. Now that's just imaginary, that last part. It's quite significant to think that a woman at home has 4 times the stress levels of a man in the workplace. So this is definitely taking its toll on our relationships. So without getting too scientific and a little boring, I'm going to be a little scientific and boring for a moment. Just a moment. Which, by the way, is a secret technique, women, you can use with your husbands when you get married, or if you're married or dating or whatever, even with your sons, mothers to sons. This works really great. If you sense that you're going to talk more than a few minutes, warn them. See, men need this. They say, okay, I just need to get this out for 3 minutes. I don't want you to say anything. I'm going to be done, and it's for your information only. And I tell you, they'll listen. But what happens if you start talking about stuff, men immediately go into the male brain, will immediately go to another part of the brain to figure out what is my response to this going to be. And as soon as he shifts to that other part of the brain of what is my response to this going to be, he stops listening. He can't hear you while he's thinking. They even have brain scans showing that when men are listening, one part of the brain lights up, and when they're thinking, another part of the brain lights up. Exclusive of listening. So we're kind of like running back and forth in our brain. And women not only can listen and think at the same time, but they can feel and plan and remember and have a big discussion. It's like a conference call going on in her brain with every part. And men are like running laps around their brain trying to hold on to this conversation. After they've analyzed what you say, they go, I don't know what to say. They come back up to listen again, to gather more information, and you've changed the subject. So anyway, that was a preface to how you set up a conversation makes a big difference. And for a minute, I'm just going to talk a little science as a foundation, and then we'll come back to a lighter subject. But when we look at, basically, we look at one of the themes of this book. It's called Hormonal Balance for Life, Love, and Energy. And we have these hormones, and so much research is being done now on hormones over the last 10, 15 years, and men and women's hormonal systems are completely different. Completely different. And by understanding a bit about that, not having to go into a huge depth, just a bit about it, suddenly so many of the things that we wonder about the opposite sex begin to make sense. And if at least life makes sense, your stress levels go down tremendously. It's when life doesn't make sense, it's just an extra stressor. So that's one thing. Without your partner ever changing, just understanding men or understanding women, some stress levels can come down. And next to that, then we can start figuring out what strategies of approaching my partner to give the support I'd like to give and to get the support I'd like to get back. But knowing what you're dealing with makes a much bigger difference. I just saw the door open, and it's such a great example of this. What I see men and women both doing is being frustrated with their partner. And they want their partner to respond or behave a certain way. And it's literally like walking up to that wall and saying, I want to walk through this wall to get out of here. And we just keep banging our head up against the wall. There's no way out through that wall. There's one doorway. Actually, there's a couple doorways here. And someone might say, but I don't want to walk through that doorway. I want to go here. I go, it doesn't exist. You can't change certain things. We have to learn to accept those, but it doesn't mean just accepting I can't get out of the room through that wall. Find the door. So when I'm talking about differences, that's so we can accept them and make sense of them. It's not so we passively just embrace what is, but we actively embrace what is, so now we can work on making our lives work better. So find that door, find that way through. And sometimes it's not the way you'd like it to be, but you work with it. And once you work with it, you find solutions and you work around it without feeling like you have to settle. Sometimes when I give some of the ideas I'm about to present tonight, a woman might say, so basically what you're saying, John, is just lower my expectations. Which sounds a little like you're being defeated, but it is changing your expectations. The thought that I can walk through that wall right away is an unrealistic expectation. But do I have to give up? No, I just have to find the doorway. There's a doorway, and you learn to find that doorway. And we are so resistant to change, but when you have a pathway and you practice it, you can work it out. One simple example I'm reminded of, besides that door opening and closing, is my glasses. So this is about the last, since 40, I started, reaching out further and further and 40, now around 60. I almost have to wear them all the time, which is great because now I never lose them. But that whole 20 years where I didn't have to use them except when I needed them, I was losing glasses left and right. I got 10 glasses in all the stations of the house. Bonnie would complain. She says, they all end up in front of the computer. There'd be like 10 glasses there. And I go, okay, we'll start moving them around again. And every time I needed my glasses and I didn't have them on me, I was so frustrated. And I'd be so mad at those glasses. Instead of like, wow, it's these glasses that let me read things. I can't even read a book now without these glasses. I should be so grateful for these glasses. I am so grateful for these glasses. Now there's no frustration when I can't find my glasses. It's like, those are my good friend glasses because I'm blind without them. I go to the airports and you try to find your flight. And there was that point where I go, if I didn't have glasses, I wouldn't know where my plane is. I mean, basically, this is something I should be so grateful for. And yet for 20 years, I was so frustrated. Where are those blank glasses? Where are those blank glasses? Darn those blank glasses. Instead of like, where are those wonderful glasses? And so what I want to put forth the idea, just hold it as a concept, which to me is a valuable concept. Anytime I'm unhappy about something, when I'm unhappy, I may not like something, I may want to change something, but when I'm personally upset about it, that's my stress levels are up. I'm personally upset about it. What I can keep in mind is two things. This is the little science of what happens when you're stressed. I haven't gotten there. I keep avoiding that terrible thing. What happens? And then on the other side, I got a gavel here. This is what happens when you're under stress. Your whole systems of health and happiness and longevity crash when we're under chronic stress. And I'll give a few more scientific details on that. But the flip side of this, to be simple about the art of love and happiness on one simple level, just to keep in mind in the back of our minds, we're out of balance. We are simply out of balance, and we need to know that. If you're upset with someone, you're out of balance, which means that in that moment when you're upset with them, you have forgotten all the good things about them or all the other good things in your life. Life is a mess. Life is a hell. To think of all the speakers that have been here at the Commonwealth Club, the wars and the fighting and the cheating and the corruption and the evil, and all of the horrible things that go on in this world. How can anybody sleep at night? Well, if that's all I thought about, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. But there's balance to life. There's the negative, and then there's the positive. And when we're balanced and looking at the negative, then we're activists. We do something about it. But if we're just in the negative, we are depressed, we're upset, we're bothered, we're resentful. None of that stuff works as far as communication. We have to balance it with all the positive, and the positive that exists. And I'm not going to give a talk and look at all the positive or whatever, but just know that when you're unhappy or frustrated, your power to create change is limited if you don't balance it and let go of your stress. Stress prevents you from solving problems. Stress prevents you from negotiating solutions. Brain scan on a person under stress. The higher my stress level goes, that means the more annoyed and irritated and frustrated or revengeful or spiteful or I'm remembering what this person did. Any of that stuff going on means that blood flow has increased to the back of my brain and has stopped to the front of my brain. Most everybody here knows enough brain science. We don't have to be brain scientists to know the front part of the brain is what separates us from the monkeys. And the monkeys are the middle part of the brain, and behind that is the reptilian part of the brain. No consciousness at all. It's all unconscious, reactive. And you can see in a brain scan that when we are stressed and we're upset, blood flow stops to the only part of the brain that's capable of communicating and truly understanding another person's point of view. Forget about it. And nothing's going to happen. Change doesn't happen when we don't have a full understanding of the other perspective. I help people to some extent, but at least on the surface, knowing the differences, which then opens the door for us to get a little closer and truly hear somebody, instead of always thinking, why do I have to open the door back there? That's 20 steps I have to walk. Why should I have to go back there when I could just go right there? And we expect someone to change at our whim, as opposed to understanding people are different and we have to learn to approach them. You can't simply, this is for my single women and men out there, more so for the single women, you can't go on a date and have this liberated woman's feeling that I can say and feel anything I want. I'm going to put it out there. You put it out there, you find out why men don't call back. You know, it's like, imagine if you went into a job interview and you're just going to put out there whatever you want. Matter of fact, tonight even, it was a kind of a sweet thought. I was in a hurry. I said, honey, it's just a Commonwealth Club. I'm going to wear my jeans. She said, oh, it'd be so nice to put on your slacks. All right, I'll put on my slacks. And then when I was here, I realized it was appropriate because so many women look so beautiful tonight, all dressed up. And this is what a man can know. If a woman dresses up, then it's important for us to dress up. When it's just men with men, the most undressed person is the one in charge. You see Jobs talking, he's wearing jeans and some old t-shirt or something. That's because he doesn't have to answer to anybody. But if there's women in the room, out of respect, if they dress up, you dress up. Makes them feel good. I've learned that being a good husband to my wife. She has wardrobe permission to correct me. Because it means so much more to her. We have to understand it. It means more to her. So if something means more to her, then I bow to that. I honor that. We have to know what means more to one versus the other. And then we don't sort of step on each other's toes unknowingly. If we can think about the change which is happening in relationships today, it's as though for hundreds of years we've all been listening to the same music and doing dance steps together, almost like a waltz, but certainly it's more complicated. Every culture has their own dance steps. But when you change the global music, which means that suddenly women are primarily in the workplace supporting their family just like men, this is a whole different situation, and all the roles change. And in the changing of those roles, that means the dance steps to the music have to change. We're stepping on each other's toes, stepping on each other's feet, unknowingly tripping each other and saying, what did you put your foot there for? And if we want evidence of that, we see the statistics since 1969. When no-fault divorce was instituted in the United States, divorce went from 10% to 50%. As far as new marriages go, it's still 50%. So you think, okay, has it been getting worse? Dramatically worse. People are so expecting their marriages not to work that 25% of our adult population that used to choose to get married are not even getting married. That's a massive shift. And when you have marriages, new marriages, 50%, as soon as you get to a second marriage, it's 65% average go for a divorce. As soon as you get to third marriages, it's in the 80 to 90% range. It doesn't have to be that way. I'm saying those are averages. But this is what's going on. This is a breakdown of the family. It's a huge problem. And there's a little more subtlety to it. Even those first marriages were way less first marriages because 65% of all, quote, first marriages has somebody who's been married before. And so in those 65% of first marriages that really have somebody else in there from a previous marriage, the rate of those marriages failing is 65%. So basically, we're really in the, 1 out of 3 marriages at this point. Now we have another crisis on hand, which I'll just mention in a short presentation. You can't give big answers to these things, and there are no simple answers to this stuff. But just to describe the problem that we're experiencing right now in New York and LA and San Francisco particularly, when I go there, women are always saying to me, where are the men? In San Francisco, it's where are the straight men? But there's a bit of that, but that's not my point. My point is it's almost 2 to 1 professional women under 30 in New York and LA are women. 2 women to 1 man in the professional realm. So as a woman, if you're looking for a man who has a professional, quote, status similar to yours, you're now competing with another woman to find him. It doesn't look pretty when women compete for men. because they don't know how to do it. They've never had to do it. There were always men competing for women. And suddenly you've got this whole thing turned around. And if you pursue a man the way you would like a man to pursue you, guess what? It doesn't work. See, women have always been on the side of the table where these men are pursuing you. And why was that, by the way? Even though there's kind of like equal number of men and women. I'm going to just walk a little bit on some thin ice here for fun. Dice up this conversation. It used to be, and I can do it very simply. Generally speaking, men marry women for love and beauty. You are the embodiments of love and beauty. And women married men for their devotion and their power. And power meaning their ability to get things done. You could sum that up by income. Or not be so trivial or superficial, you could sum that up from the point of view, he needs to have a job. And every mother still needs to tell her daughter that. Don't even consider getting married until he has a job. But a man today, or at least up into the present time, there's a lot of confusion today, didn't really care that much if a woman had a job, particularly if he had a job. But women should care if a man has a job. And when they don't care, quite often he never gets a job. Particularly if you're a high earner, a man will say, okay, I like to just play golf every day. Are you happy with that? No. If a man's making a lot, and she says, oh, while you're on that business trip, I'm just going to go shopping. He says, good. Show me what you bought. He's happy. Because the bottom line is that men go for the love and the beauty. Women go for the power and the job. Now today, that's all changed. It's just suddenly when women are going after men, it's like, what are you going after a man for? It's very confusing. You have the power. 2-to-1 women making more money than men in New York City in the professional level. This is like a whole other realm. What are you going after? And the men, they got women coming after them. It used to be men had to go after the women. Now women are going after men. And you know what happens when you pursue a man? He goes, that's great, I like it. Who else? What else we got on the menu? Whereas if a man pursues a woman, she goes, oh, okay, this is good. Let's see what else he can do for me. Let's see how much he cares about me and see what he can do. So there's this whole dynamic where women are like, how do I get these guys? And they're also, make this a little dicier, very happy to give sex. I talk to them. I say, did you have sex the first date? And they, well, of course. I say, why? Did you want to? Well, that's what he wants. I say, give a man what he wants and you think he's going to commit to you? Give a woman what she wants repeatedly, she'll commit to you. Give a man what he wants, he goes, this is good, what else? I remember back, this is 10 years ago in my repertoire, there was an article in like one of these glamour magazines or something, you know, Red Book, whatever. And it was 10 eligible bachelors, 35 years old, tell the secrets of what they want. Now, you're going to listen to a guy who's single up to 35 years to find out what men want? How about 10 happily fulfilled married men tell you what men want? And give men that, and then you'll have a happy marriage, not another bachelor. It's very confusing. You can't just ask a man what he wants. It's like, give it to him, and he's like, that's great. Who else will do that for me? Now we're going to get into the heart. Now that's just saying kind of mother's wisdom, grandmother's wisdom, and I'm just sort of saying what I see and hear. Let's look at some physiology here. The physiology, coming back over here, is our hormonal systems are different. When a man, to be alive, needs a minimum of 30 times more testosterone in his body than a woman. Testosterone. This is, we all know male hormone. Did we ever know? He needs at least 30 times more than your average woman. And that today, the World Health National Institute of Health says the #1 risk of heart disease for men is low testosterone. Not cholesterol levels, not all these things, not even stress. It's if he has low testosterone levels. Everything in terms of men's health is directly linked to the hormone testosterone. How does a man rebuild his testosterone levels when they're low? My goodness, wouldn't that be great to know? The problem is once you find out you're not happy with that answer, at least for a moment, is when you're coming home and you're going, why is he sitting on the couch? How does a man rebuild testosterone? How does a woman rebuild testosterone if you ran out? Is resting your muscles. In a relaxed state, rest your muscles and your body will rebuild testosterone. So men have because we have 30 times more testosterone, our brain has the ability to turn off all problems. See, we have an off switch that generally occurs when the sun sets. It just goes off. And women go, why is my husband, he doesn't care about anything? Bunny would say, oh, we got to clean up the house. We're having a party tonight. I'd say, oh, they're our friends. Who cares? They have a messy house sometime. They'll understand. And she says, no, these aren't our friends. These are the new neighbors. So well, I don't even know if they're my friend yet, so why should I even care? A man can rationalize anything to justify relaxing his muscles. That's what he has to do it to live. Now, if it's an emergency, he can jump up for sure, but his tendency is going to be, I got to rebuild my testosterone. You see a guy in a mall, shopping mall with his wife, and particularly if he has no goal, because he didn't know where we're going to go next, who we're shopping for, she changes midstream. She can look at things and not buy them. Maybe next time, he's like, just kill it, take it home. No, we're going to look more. And so you see men with their wives, they're like exhausted in the mall. You know, they'll be sitting, here's a store with a couch. You know, here's a store with a chair. His muscles are saying, look, if we're not going to use the testosterone, let's rebuild it. And this is what men are about. It's this testosterone hormone. Understanding it is so helpful. Then you can start making sense of these behaviors inside of him. But the flip side of this is, what's the main hormone for women? The hormone is oxytocin. O-X-Y-T-O-C-I-N. And since the 90s, it started in the 90s when the drug companies discovered that oxytocin, in the 50s they found out oxytocin induces birth. So now when the doctor wants to be done with you, he just gives you a shot of Pitocin, synthetic oxytocin, and you induce labor in the child. Now, in some cases, this may save a life, but now, routinely in some hospitals, it's used 80 to 90% of all women who have pregnancy. The doctor says, hey, why don't we just get this over with now? Wouldn't you like to stop these contractions? We'll just give you a shot of Pitocin. Now, new research shows, we all know the epidemic of ADD, ADHD. They did one survey of 150-something kids with ADHD, and they found that 85% of them all had induced births. And that we know that ADD, ADHD brains are a little different. And we're finding out now that inflammation is the cause of the ADD, ADHD brain. And certainly there's a variety of things that can cause inflammation. One of them is high blood sugar of the mother. Did you know that? Most people had no idea of this. The way the research comes out is always more dramatic. A mother with diabetes, a child is born with diabetes. Diabetes is really high blood sugar. But even before it gets really high, guess what you have? You have prediabetes blood sugar, which some people estimate 1 out of 3 people in America has pre-diabetic condition called insulin resistance. So here's an unknowing mother just eating her regular diet, which often has high carbohydrate consumption. Her blood sugar is high. The child has no protection against that. And so what you get is the high blood sugar causes inflammation. Inflammation causes ADD, ADHD symptoms. Another cause of ADD, ADHD symptoms, induced labor. At least from that study I mentioned. And why would it? You ask why. Well, when you induce a contraction, the contraction is much stronger than a normal contraction, and it's more intense. The actual contraction takes longer, and the distance between contractions is shorter. So there's a whole rhythm to life that gets changed. And these are just things we discovered. Oh, Pitocin, let's give it to the woman. You know, oh, it makes it more convenient. So then they learned in the 90s that Pitocin, or that's a synthetic version, oxytocin, the hormone oxytocin, is responsible for women's orgasms. Well, somebody got excited about that. Usually at my longer courses, men will say, where'd I get that oxytocin? I said, what, you can't do it yourself? Well, can I get in a pill? I said, you got it built in. You know how to do it, I just have to teach you how to do it, because men have the power to stimulate oxytocin in women. But women also have the power to increase oxytocin in them, and they shouldn't be waiting around for a man to do it. She has to learn how to do it herself, and men can help. That's the whole secret to this whole thing. But understanding first, what direction do we need to focus on here? Oxytocin tends to be the holy grail for women. And as they found out that it was responsible for climax in a woman, it's responsible for climax in a man as well. And you can see right in the bedroom the difference of the effect oxytocin has on women versus men. A man has a climax, oxytocin causes the release. What happens? He's gone. He's off to sleep, or he's off to play football, whatever he's off to do, but he's off. And for women, if he's not done yet and she's had her climax, her oxytocin is released, she can just keep on going, keep riding a horse, having a good time. This is great. If they both finish, she's ready to talk and share if he's still awake. They can cuddle, they can plan their future, all these wonderful things, but who bothers anymore? He's asleep. They go right out. But for oxytocin, when it's released, if a woman has an abundance of oxytocin, which is why we have something today called foreplay, it's some activities to help raise her oxytocin level so she can have a climax. If she's one of the 50% of women that are said to have climaxes, I don't know, I just read these surveys and studies, that say that women don't always have climaxes. Well, we know that, but that some of them never had climax. And anyway, all this is about this hormone oxytocin. Oxytocin, they learned in the last 8 years or 9 years, 9 years at first the study was shown, not only causes orgasm, but lowers stress in women. So when I read that, I said, I got to write this book. Now it's bulletproof. Now I can go out there and really talk about the big differences, because I got big evidence for it. All the things that women complain men don't do for them, that men don't complain about. You don't have men coming into this counselor's office saying, gee, the only time she touches me is when she wants sex. Yeah, women will say it. She'll say, the only time he touches me is when he wants sex. And as a guy, I'm thinking, well, what's wrong with that? But you don't say that as a therapist. You nod your head and say, well, tell me about that. And you learn. But I went in back in those days, found out that why women are so into affection and touching, hugging, compliments, affection, touching. It's just basic stuff that men stop doing quite often in marriages, is because those hormones just put men to sleep. But those are the hormones that stimulates the hormone that actually lowers stress in women. And the hormone that lowers stress in men is testosterone. If I'm anticipating success, I'm using my testosterone. That will lower stress for me. And if a woman is anticipating being nurtured, being loved, being understood, being touched, being seen, just the anticipation of that, women's oxytocin levels will start rebuilding. Now, as she's rebuilding her oxytocin, it still doesn't lower her stress. What lowers her stress is using up her oxytocin. And how do you use up your oxytocin? You nurture others. You think, what can I do for you? And oh, what can I do for you? Oh, well, I'm going to give you a compliment. Oh, you need help walking crossing the street. Let me help you. Let me help you. Women's like little antennas all the time. What else can I do for you? What else can I do for you? Oh, and then we'll see a woman in love. Oh my gosh, all she thinks about, what else am I going to do for him? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Mother for their children. Your brain is designed, your reward system as a woman, it's built in, it's hardwired, and it's not there in men. Your reward system is if I nurture others, my stress goes down and I feel great. That's if I'm nurturing others. Now, nurturing others is serving others, being there for others. When you're there for others, you're using up your oxytocin. But what happens when you've used up all your oxytocin? Your brain is still saying, and now your stress levels are getting higher, and your brain says, oh, if I'm stressed out, let me do something nice for someone. Let me bake some cookies for the neighbors, for my children, let me plan something to make my husband happier. So she starts giving when she's under stress. So what do you find out? What's the biggest complaint? The number one complaint that women have over and over and over when they're thinking about leaving a marriage, or when they're unhappy in their marriage, long before they're unhappy in their marriage, they'll say, I give and I give and I give and I don't get back. And you say, what's your biggest problem? I give too much. Women say that with badges. I give too much, I give too much. And a guy going, why would you give too much? It doesn't make sense to me at all. And I'm saying it right now. It doesn't make sense unless I understand your hormones. When women are nurturing others, there's a huge release of oxytocin. As a matter of fact, if I nurture my children, there's only a little oxytocin that gets released. Men need oxytocin too, but not too much. And if we get little, we're sitting on the couch. We can easily get it. We just ask you to do something for us. We'll get our oxytocin. Whenever someone is doing something for you, your oxytocin levels start to build up. Whenever you're giving to another, you use up your oxytocin, but the reward of using up your oxytocin is your stress levels go down. So when you're stressed, what does a smart woman do? She starts giving and giving and giving. Now let's put these smart women 100 years ago, just to make it simple. When women lived 100 years ago and for thousands of years back, they're living primarily with other women who have the same hormonal system. They're working side by side with women who have the same hormonal system. So when one woman gets stressed, all she does is give to another woman. And the other woman goes, oh, I'm being given to, I'm receiving, so now I'm building up my oxytocin, and now I want to give it to you. There's some research that even shows, that indicates, when you start looking at just hormonals, that actually, when women have high oxytocin levels, they start to feel anxious unless they can do something for someone else. Now, I didn't need to read that in a research study. That just helped explain women. See, I can come home, my wife can wait on me, she can tell me what a great husband I am, she can make me a dinner, I could even imagine she's massaging my feet, whatever. And I'm thinking the whole time, what a great wife I have. She's the best. I can just sit here in my recliner and watch the news. Can't imagine a better wife. Now imagine my wife comes home and she's tired. I say, honey, sit down in the recliner. Let me put on the news. I'm going to make dinner tonight. I'll give you a little neck massage. Within 10 minutes of me giving to her, what does every cell in her body want to do? Get up and help. Get up and join in. Because you can't just sit off to the side and not join in, because it's the joining in, it's the giving of yourself that lowers your stress. But men aren't designed that way. Men rebuild through resting, and they release through using it up. And they use it up by solving problems, achieving goals. How do I know that I'm solving a problem? How do I know that I'm achieving a goal? Well, in today's modern world, men know that when they're paid. So men work for money. And when you work for money, anticipation of more money releases testosterone, and suddenly your stress levels goes down. Now, when I go to China, they pay me a lot of money. As a matter of fact, I go to the Middle East, they pay me a lot of money. Big, long flight, I got to get away from my family. Who wants to fly to these faraway places in an airplane? I don't. I've been doing it 35 years. The last thing I want to do is jump in a long flight. But when somebody's paying me a lot of money, do I care? No, I'm happy to sit in that airplane all that time and go what it takes to, because of that reward that's at the end. It's not the reward that does it, it's the anticipation that I am making a big difference. Because in our society, when somebody makes a big difference, you give them more. If somebody makes a little difference, you give them less. So men and testosterone is all about action and reward, action and reward. When women are in the world of action and reward, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make this money, I'm working now for money. I'm not working because I love you. I'm not working because you're part of my family and my community. I'm going to help you. I'm working because I have to pay the bills. When you work, this would be the extreme, because not every woman does that, but to the extreme, I'm working to pay the bills. I don't like my job. I have to do it in order to pay my bills. Guess what just happened for her? Her stress level goes at least twice as high as a man's. Matter of fact, when I have to do something that produces dopamine, says, you got to do it, it increases my testosterone. So lots of guys, we wait to the last minute to do anything. Like Christmas season comes along, the advertisers will say all day long on the last shopping day, they'll say, last shopping day, last shopping day. How many women need to know that information? They've been shopping since Thanksgiving. My wife shops after Christmas for the rest of the year. So this is all planning ahead. She thinks ahead. She thinks ahead. It's what women do. They're designed to think ahead. Men are designed to wait to the last minute. It's like there's a gene inside of us. They haven't found it, so I can't say there is. So I can say it's like there's this gene inside of men. And it is what I call the efficiency gene. Never do anything you don't have to do. Just look, it makes so much sense of all these male behaviors. They'll wait to the last minute, and then they do it. So they need to be motivated. Like, okay, if I want this result, I have to do this. So this is where knowledge comes into play. Men are so easy to change if women could just understand, not really changing him, but motivating him. Think about, and I have to put this in the context of marriage counseling. I have years and years, if you just sort of back up and listen to, what is she saying when she comes to me? What she's saying is, John, how can I get him to change? It's always, how can I get him to change? How can I get him to do it differently? And when you feel that way, you're powerless to create change. When you learn, what can I do and to change my approach, to change my attitude, to change how I'm feeling, then you have the power to pull out the best in a man. You can't change him. He is what he is. But you can pull out the best in him. You can motivate him. That's the key. Motivate men. Ultimately, men would not get out of bed in the morning if they didn't have to work, generally speaking. So what you'll see is a lot of children, boys who grow up who have wealthy fathers, often have big challenges in life because they didn't have to work. So they didn't learn what they could do. They didn't build up the confidence of what I can do. And the reward system is when I'm there to be of service to others, I do the tough stuff. I get up and I do it. I carry the weight of things. When he does that, it trains him. He has the power. He doesn't know he has the power until he uses it. And he's got a feedback loop that rewards him when he makes a difference and serves somebody, makes a difference, solves a problem. Then his testosterone is released, and then he rebuilds it. He gets, all of a sudden his mind just goes blank. He goes, I'm happy. Okay, I'm just sitting in front of the news watching other people's problems that I don't have to do anything about. And then you want to come and tell him all your problems. Because guess what happens? One of the things to stimulate what I'll call super oxytocin is talking. This is why therapy over the last 40 years has become this massive industry. More therapists than doctors and nurses combined are therapists. And 90% of the people who go to therapists are women. And people always go, how can we get men to go to therapy? It's like, how can we get men to change? Men don't need to change. They need to understand how to solve the problem. They have to first understand what the problem is, and then how do you solve this? And we don't have a clue, because we think when women bring up their issues, we think something's wrong with you. When there's nothing wrong with you, but you never had to tackle this with men before, because women lived in one world and men lived in another, and there are a few places where they connected. And suddenly we're side by side all the time, falling over each other, and women are like talking about things, and men are going, why are you making a big deal out of that? It's not a problem. Don't worry about that. Just do this and this and this. She goes, I don't want your solutions. I just want to tell you how I feel, what's going on inside. Well, why are you telling me what you feel? What's the big deal? Well, I can't answer that question for men until I come up with the science and say, you know what, men? When women talk about problems and they feel heard, there's a massive increase of oxytocin. Just like when you give her a little hug. Oxytocin levels go up. It's measurable. 8 seconds later, oxytocin levels are increasing. A woman anticipating a date on the weekend, that's called romance. Anticipating a date. Doesn't have to be a fancy date, just anticipating that she can tell everybody, I'm going on a date with my husband. We're going here, we're going there. It's one day in the week, at least, where she feels she's going to get the full attention. It's just that attention stimulates oxytocin. 90% of the whole fashion industry is dedicated to who? Women. Look at all the magazines, all the money is all there. It's so women will attract attention. Look at me, express my beauty, express who I am. See me, see me, see me. The irony is, very rarely do I hear a woman say her number one complaint is I don't get enough attention. Because that would make her sound like a baby. But that is what's going on. Is women want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be validated, they want understanding, and they're looking to a guy who doesn't have a clue. This is tough stuff. And yet, when you've gotten a little dose of that understanding, huge oxytocin levels go up. So part of you goes, there was a door there. When we went on that third date, he listened, he talked, he shared. There was one study I read, I don't know if it's true, there's so many studies, but men talk more on the third date than any other time in your relationship. That's when he's getting serious. He figures, okay, I'm going to get it all out now. I'll never have to do it again. But that's 20 years ago talking. Now, we've got these feminized men, and they talk more than women. And yeah, it's just, I know, it's disgusting, isn't it? It's like, ugh, Yuck, it's slime all over you. And women go, but shouldn't I like this? I mean, I've been wanting conversation. What you've really been wanting is someone to understand your point of view. You're wanting to be seen and heard. Once you get him to talk about how he feels and everything, oh, I don't have time for this. Now, it's okay if it's not more than you, but there's a balance to these things, and men have to learn it. Women first, ladies first. If she's upset, let her express herself. Don't interrupt. Don't focus. And you, but she's going on like I'm agreeing with everything. No, she's just feeling heard. What about my point of view? I say just put it off to the side till she's ready to hear it. And then, if you put it off to the side, she's going to be glowing for a while. And now she's starting to feel and remember all the good things about you. And her life goes back into balance. Remember I started with the whole thing about balance? See, what you see happening in a woman's brain is under moderate stress, 8 times more blood flow to the emotional part of the brain. Aiming right at what's called the hippocampus, which has in its center the emotional memory. And when it's flooded with blood, she suddenly has this experience of massive memory of every mistake you ever made. It's like right in front of her. And she has temporary amnesia of any good thing you ever did. She's out of balance. And she's designed to have all this extra activity. She's out of balance. She can come back into balance. And the modern way we have to learn is how he can assist her in coming back into balance. And until he can, she has to learn how to come back into balance. And to a certain extent, that's why therapy has been so big of an industry. Is you go in and what do you do in a therapist's office? You just talk about your problems. And a good therapist doesn't try to fix them or solve them. And women will pay you for that. That's why I say to men, I say, get the message here. Women pay hundreds of dollars to sit there and talk about problems without the man doing anything. But nod your head. Okay, well, tell me more. Really? Well, let's get back. How's this going? You told me last week about this. She goes, oh, he remembered my problem. Because being remembered, being seen, being heard, all these things help raise the oxytocin. Women are hungry for oxytocin because 8 hours of the day, they're in this very testosterone environment of urgency, emergency, sacrifice for money. Sacrifice for money. You got to do it today, but sacrifice for money doesn't produce any oxytocin. It pays the bills, and if you're good at that, you feel good about yourself. Anytime you induce pain in your body, you will produce endorphins. So you're doing this job that's not giving you what you need, but you'll feel good about it, which is ironic for some women. They go, but I feel good, but do you sleep at night? Are your hormones out of balance? Are you in your 40s and now you're getting hot flashes? Did you know that women in indigenous cultures don't experience hot flashes? They don't. All this stuff that we take for common, everything that we take for granted that this is just the change of life for women. There is a change of life where you can't make babies, but the symptoms of it have not been in past. Sleeplessness, hot flashes, irritability, wanting to shoot your husband. Those weren't the symptoms. This is all new stuff. And you go to your doctor. I say, God, I feel terrible in my life. I'm out of balance, everything. Well, let's give you this pill, an antidepressant, which makes the problem worse. Or turns around and gives you hormones, which sometimes, if you get the right balance of hormones, it's a lifesaver. So I talk to women. They say, oh, I can't live without my hormones. I've got to have my hormones. And then I hear all the horrible stories about it. But what you have to know is anytime you take a hormone, your body stops making them. It's as simple as that. This is why steroids are so bad for men. This is why the Barry Bonds story, all you have to do is go into the locker room to see if he's done steroids. Because the gland that makes testosterone is no longer there. It shrank. It atrophied. Now, do you want your glands atrophying? Do you want your brain to turn off to making hormones? Well, if it's a life and death situation, yes. But if it's a matter of learning, how as a woman can learn to balance my hormones? How as a man can I learn to increase my testosterone? The average male in America, these are averages, not everyone, but averages, at 40 years old today, has the testosterone levels of a 70-year-old man just 30 years ago in America. That's how dramatically down it is. The average male at 70 years old in America had these low testosterone levels. The average male who lives in the mountains in Afghanistan and certain villages in South America where they did this testing has testosterone levels of a 20-year-old. Men are not designed to have their testosterone levels drop. This is part of our lifestyle. And this also has a lot to do with all of the pollutants. So very simple on that. There's more in my book on all this stuff. But the bottom line is that when you eat the fast food, when you eat a steak or a chicken or bacon, it doesn't say hormone-free. Guess what you're eating? Hormone replacement. Estrogen that they put in that animal to fatten them up. So we live in the fat culture. But also we have in the hormonal imbalance culture. Anytime, if it doesn't say hormone-free, and none of your cheap meats are going to say hormone-free. So if it's not hormone-free, you're actually taking hormone replacement at that time. If you're a woman and you're doing birth control, you're taking hormones. If you're raising a child and you're giving them formula, over half of the formulas use soy protein for the formula. 25 grams a day for a child in their protein, soy protein. The amount of estrogen in that is equivalent to 1 birth control pill. And taking into consideration the size of the child, it's the equivalent of 7 birth control pills that we're giving to our children and their formulas. We're all messed up. We're just playing with all these things that seem to work on the surface, but the effects down the line are disastrous, affecting our health and affecting our relationships. And people often say to me, how can changing what you eat affect your relationship? Are you kidding? If you have balanced blood sugar, means you didn't dip. Balanced blood sugar means you're making serotonin and dopamine all the time. So what happens is you have focus and good mood. You have optimism. You're able to stay balanced. But if you have low blood sugar, instantly, for that moment, you cannot remember anything good in your life. Suddenly, everything is dangerous. Everything's worrisome or numb. That's another symptom of stress. It's going numb, just feeling low energy. I was just at my seeing one of my grandsons on Father's Day. Literally for 3 hours, he's jumping up and down like this. He was so excited. The whole family was there. He was just running around nonstop, energy, just nonstop. What's funny is I'm doing this, I'm remembering all these indigenous cultures I've been to, and what do they do for exercise? They go out and just jump up and down. This is like the oldest exercise in the world. This child is doing it automatically. It's an exercise that actually gives you energy and doesn't lose energy. We're out there exhausting ourselves doing hard exercise. We make our lives so much harder because we're not educated. We're doing what seems to work on the surface. So anyway, what my book is about and what my message is about, let's take some time in our lives to understand when there's a problem and we're pointing the finger out there, 3 fingers point back to us. There's a lot of work we can do inside. And when we have physical issues, instead of looking for some pill or some fix-it that's not natural, let me find something that is natural. So I wrote a whole book on that, so half the book. Tonk for testosterone in men. One of the men was saying, I heard your talk before, I did it, that stuff works. It gets it up. Tongkat Ali, an herb from Thailand, Bangkok, Thailand, won't grow anywhere else. Guy starts taking 1 capsule of that, 5 days, go off at 2, 5 days, go off. A few months, your testosterone levels are at least, research shows, 400% more. If they're really low, they'll go up further. It just takes a little bit longer. These are different cultures have had situations where men were under great stress or women were under great stress, and they have their natural remedies. They're out there. This is like, ever since I've been talking about this, know the industry, the price of Tongkat Ali has now gone up for manufacturers 10 times. It is one of those herbs that works. Kick ass. And why is it so important today? Because men's testosterone levels are dropping so low. Also, what you eat. Avoid, to your best ability, the hormone foods. Instead, eat the foods, more of the foods that kick hormones out of your body. And that's cruciferous vegetables, things like bok choy, cauliflower, the little ones, Brussels sprouts. I'm not wild about them, so I can't. And broccoli, that's my favorite, broccoli. So these are like simple things that we can start doing. Lots of simple things. I don't want to sound like Dr. Oz up here because he's got a million simple things. I limit it to the things that I've seen, a few. Change your vegetables around. If you're a guy, take Tongkat Ali. If you're a woman, maca. Maca, M-A-C-A. It's a potato that grows in Peru. It will lower your stress levels. Your hormones will start going into balance almost immediately. I've seen for some women, not all, but for some women, 2 days of using a teaspoon of maca and a little shake in the morning or with apple juice or whatever, the hot flash is gone, just like that. Sometimes you need a little bit more. But this is something that's been used for hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years in Peru, which when people are stressed, they give them maca. It's a plant that grows at the highest altitude on the planet, which is what's called the highest stress environment because there's low oxygen, there's more stress on the plant. To survive that high environment, that low oxygen environment, the plant has to create something called repair enzymes. And repair enzymes help you, like you eat food, has enzymes to help you digest, where repair enzymes help you to repair your body for all this stress. And it particularly helps restore adrenal function. Your adrenal gland is why you don't make enough hormones as you get older, women. This is very clearly proven. All of your hormones, your estrogen, progesterone balance, it's made from DHEA, which is made from your adrenal gland. And as soon as your adrenal gland is stressed, then it stops making DHEA, doesn't make enough progesterone, and starts making too much estrogen, but sometimes at a lower level compared to progesterone. Think of progesterone and estrogen like a little braking system. Progesterone is your brakes to slow you down, calm you down, relax you, look at one thing. Estrogen speeds you up, says, oh, there's danger, must do this, must do this, must do this. So as women get older, naturally their hormone levels do drop, particularly at menopause, because you don't have to make babies. But you still have to have the right balance. And the imbalance that women experience at any age, when they have painful breasts, when they have bloating, when they have cramps, when they have irritability, when they have PMS, when they have all the hot flashes, when they have vaginal dryness, all these different things of aging that are going on with women, it's all symptomatic of too much estrogen compared to progesterone. One herb helps correct that. It's the most popular sold herb in Europe. Been used for, I don't know, a long time in Europe. Called Vitex. Vitex chasteberry extract is the unofficial name for it. The monks used to take it so they wouldn't think about sex all the time. So when people hear that, they think, oh, I don't want that because I want to think about sex. But for them, it was so they don't think about sex all the time. Because what it does, it's an herb that helps your body increase the production of progesterone, which calms you down, calms you down. And today is one of the most important herbs because this is the big problem that we're having today, which is the estrogen dominance, all of the estrogen in our food. Estrogen is also in xenoestrogens that have the same damaging effect. Xenoestrogens are in pesticides. All pesticides are xenoestrogens. They go in your body and they confuse your hormone system. So that's why organic foods are really good. But guess what? They're in the air we breathe. They're in the carpet coming up, these xenoestrogens. We're living indoors filled with air, which is xenoestrogens. We have to do something to counteract it. I wish I could just eat great food and that would be it. But guess what? It's not enough. We're living in a dangerous time. It's dangerous to be exposed to all these toxic influences. And people say, oh, you might making a big deal out of this. Are you kidding? With the amount of autism shooting up in our children, the amount of ADD, it's ADHD. Why is it that 60% of college graduates are women? Men are not graduating from college, and the numbers are just going down. 60% of high school graduates are girls, not boys. Boys are having 90% of learning difficulties are boys. What is going on? This is inflammation in the brain. The difference is for boys, it interferes with focus. For girls, it causes them to have too much overwhelm. And when you're overwhelmed, you want to please people. So you get little girls in school doing everything they can to please their teachers, to please their kids. Then they have all these body images and self-image and all these problems, emotional issues. But for boys, it shows up really strong because they can't perform. They can't get the grades. They can't do the job. They can't learn. Their brains can't focus. They can't read. And they don't even need glasses. What a horrible thing to look at a page and not being able to comprehend what you're looking at. They just look and read 2 words and their mind's off somewhere else. Or they actually say the words and they don't comprehend what it means. This is a huge problem happening. What's the solution? Well, if you go to your doctor as opposed to an educator, your doctor's going to say, well, let's look at all these symptoms here. I think we're going to have to recommend you take Ritalin. And you're going to say as a parent, Oh, but isn't that a drug? Oh, yeah, but it's effective. It works most of the time. The only problem with it, it doesn't work for every child, but 80% of the time it works. Well, isn't that addictive? Well, studies have shown that it's not really addictive, and that children who don't do it have even a greater risk of taking drugs as they grow up. That's their line. I said, oh, so you're telling me there's no side effects? No, nothing to worry about. Are you kidding? Nothing to worry about? You just took 2 of the possible symptoms out of 100 damaging symptoms of taking a Class C narcotic drug. Ritalin, Adderall are considered by the FDA as a Class C narcotic drug. Same thing as street meth, same thing as cocaine. This is what we're giving our children so that they will be pumped up enough to stay focused. Is it handling the solution at all? No. What is the solution? Well, you'll read in the book, well, there's lots of natural alternatives. People like John Gray would say this and this and this, and so would say this and this, and so would say this and this. So you see a page of 50 different natural solutions. And what parent is going to look at those 50 and go, gee, what do I do? I mean, and then they'll say, but of course, with these 50 natural solutions, none of them are proven to work. But the drugs, you have proven results. And let's look through the whole drug page. And you get descriptions like any parent who's going, I want my child to be happy and smart and do school. I'll do anything. Okay, if you tell me, I'll do it. Are you kidding? All the dangerous side effects, which still I haven't talked about, many parents don't know. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But what's better is to know what's the alternative. There are double-blind studies. This is their Holy Grail. This is their Bible. Do you have a double-blind study? Otherwise, nothing you say is true. Not that you did it and it worked for you. That means nothing to me. Double-blind study? Well, guess what? There are double-blind studies that show grapeseed extract. Easy to find anywhere. Supplements have been around for 50 years. One of the most popular ones in Europe, a more expensive version called pine bark extract. But the cheaper one is grapeseed, and it's cheaper, and it does just as much, is my opinion, and what research I've seen. Double-blind studies, grapeseed extract, 300 milligrams a day. That's 3 tiny little capsules, one in the morning, one at lunch, one in 100 milligrams, 100 milligrams, 100 milligrams. And twice that amount of vitamin C. 200 milligrams of vitamin C, 200 milligrams of vitamin C. So this is 2 little pills, put it in a little drink, stir it up, make it nice, whatever. And it has been proven to be just as effective as Ritalin, and no side effects. And what are the side effects of these? And by the way, since I'm here in the Bay Area, we've got Stanford right down the road, and many classes in Stanford, and some of the classes I've taught there, how many are doing Ritalin and Adderall? Over 50% of the children raise their hands. Over 50%. I saw a 60-minute special, same thing. They had Stanford grads, other big high university grads. How many are taking Adderall, Ritalin? Over 50%. They call them smart drugs, and they're saying it's unfair because they all do better. They do, because it gets your brain really focused, and then you crash the other way. This is what a narcotic does. It overstimulates you, and just as excited and focused you are one moment, you're going to be bored and depressed the next. And you get on this swing. And for a child, you give them a narcotic, suddenly the narcotic becomes the thing that gives them brain pleasure. And guess what stops giving them pleasure? The thing every healthy child is motivated by every day. What motivates a child to be their best, to do their best? Parental approval. Those children are listening. And as soon as the drug is louder, they stop hearing. And so what you get, children who take drugs no longer listen to their parents. Parents no longer have any power with them. And suddenly that child's on their own with the drug. And I have to say, in defense of the drug, sometimes parents are so grateful for that. But they have no idea the problems those children are going to have later in life. And then we just count it up for genes or something else, when the reality is we know very clearly that when you overstimulate a child's brain, you change it. And the great news is you can change it back. Why doesn't everybody know this? And these are just a few of the things we all need to know. What is the biggest crisis that we have for relationships? Unstable blood sugar. Remember I mentioned when your blood sugar drops, you have no energy, you have no memory of what's good in your life. You look at your partner and go, what have they done for me? You have no memory of it. I hear women say this all the time. Why am I with him? Sometimes my wife will say to me, who are you? I don't even know you anymore. She's forgotten who I am because there's some other behavior I'm doing. But it's balance. It's finding balance. And we lose that balance when our hormones go out of balance and when our brain chemicals go out of balance. And there are ways to remedy this. With blood sugar, which I see as our major critical problem today. Chapter 3 of the book explains blood sugar in a way that everybody can understand it. It's such a kind of complicated thing. But the bottom line of blood sugar is to know that if I did a test on you by averages, every single person minus 3 in this room would have blood sugar fluctuations throughout the day. Now, you might go get a test on blood sugar and they say, oh, you have pretty normal blood sugar. Good, they caught you at a moment where it's normal. But it's always changing. And the key is, does your blood sugar look like mine, which is like this, or does it look like the American average, like this? And how did I correct that? Another simple supplement. This was discovered by the Buddhist monks in China. There's a root called konjac root. And they would take the root because they didn't have our problem with low blood sugar because they didn't have fast food everywhere and junk food. But they wanted to be able to meditate for 6-7 hours, maybe more. So they didn't want to be hungry. That would disturb their meditation. And also, if your blood sugar doesn't stay up, you don't have the focal point to continue meditating. And they found that this konjac root, they made pasta out of it. And they'd eat the pasta and in a soup with lots of water. And the pasta goes into the stomach, the carbohydrate, and the water, and it slowly releases into your body like a time-release sugar. Time-release sugar. I was just in Australia, and I bought a little product there that was selling, and actually all it is a sugar pill. I said, now we're getting down to it. People love blood, just take a little piece of sugar. Why bother with all the other chemicals and whatever? Just a little piece of sugar, put it in, and at least you're going to get your blood sugar back up. But the problem is when you have to take sugar to stabilize your blood sugar, it goes up and goes down, goes up and goes down. So this konjac root is a fibrous substance that's very fibrous, and you drink water with it, and it will expand your stomach, so it creates a kind of fullness. And then when you eat your carbohydrates on top of it, it doesn't immediately go into your bloodstream and cause a spike in blood sugar. And after 2 to 3 months of using it regularly before every meal, suddenly you find out that you have more stable blood sugar. For me, I was most motivated because in my 50s, I started having this phenomenon where I'd eat a meal and I would just sort of have a coma. And that's called high blood sugar. Blood sugar goes, see what happens in your body is blood sugar goes up. And it shouldn't be that high. It causes damage to your brain, inflammation in your brain. It's toxic and poisonous. Your body has to constantly regulate blood sugar. It has to be just enough, just enough. Too much causes inflammation. So when your blood sugar rises up too high, your body releases insulin to lower it. But if you have what's called insulin resistance, prediabetes, your body doesn't work. So your body keeps making a lot of insulin until so much insulin it lowers your blood sugar. But when you pump in all that insulin, guess what happens? While it's trying to lower your blood sugar, it also pulls sugar out of your brain. And that is a sugar coma. And this is now what they're finding out is the cause of Alzheimer's. The new word for it, the research has confirmed this, nobody disputes this, Alzheimer's is diabetes of the brain. Is that your brain cells can no longer absorb the sugar. Now, long before that happens, you have so much insulin in your body that you're pulling sugar right out of your brain. Until you got no sugar in your brain, you can't absorb it, you can't utilize it, and your brain just doesn't go as fast as it could. You're always getting a little bit in there, you'd be dead. But we're setting up our children to have Alzheimer's by 50 years old. This is like insanity, what's going on. So what do? We can't. See, I'm always trying to be practical. Can't just say, don't eat sugar, kids. I was raised in a house where my dad said, don't eat sugar. So where did I get it? Couldn't wait to get out of the house and have my Coca-Cola. One Coca-Cola. Do you know how much sugar is in a Coca-Cola? Just a little can of Coca-Cola. That would be 8 ounce. 8 ounce of Coca-Cola is 8 teaspoons of sugar. 8 teaspoons. Imagine this is, by the way, probably 8 ounces if it went up to the top. Imagine I've just put 8 teaspoons of sugar in there and drank it. Tastes great. Make a syrup out of it. It's amazing. It's just because your brain is suddenly, wow, that's so much, but then it becomes too much, and now it starts going down. So anyway, I've had a great time talking with you. I hope I haven't depressed you. The reality is, with a little knowledge, it can seem complicated. There are solutions for all these problems that are in front of us. Everything I've talked about tonight, there's solutions for, and I'm very optimistic because I see it working and helping people in weeks. Huge changes taking place. So I want to thank the Commonwealth Club for inviting me here, and I want to thank you for inviting me here, and thank you so much. And thank you. I want to thank my lovely wife right over here on the third row. Would you raise your hand, Bonnie? Stand up. There's my wife. I would not know any of this stuff if this woman had not been there for me through our whole journey. I'm so grateful to you. Now, I'm not sure, where are we on our time?
Don't be done with us yet, John.
Okay,
We have some
okay.
questions.
Now, the odd thing is this clock has never changed throughout my whole talk.
That's because we don't want you to leave.
Okay, I gotta go. Okay, so here we have questions. So how much time do I have with questions?
Well, I've got about 7 minutes for questions.
Okay, there we go.
Then we're going to we'll close the program, and John will be outside signing books for a little while.
Okay, when it's 7 minutes for questions, I'll try to answer real fast. Okay.
Please comment on bioidentical hormones, and will maca do it?
Maca helps a lot. Bioidentical hormones have been a lifesaver for some people. Now you're going to have to keep going back and being tested over and over, and as you take them longer, your body's ability to make hormones becomes less. The good news for women is their bodies tend to be able to adapt back off of them faster than men. Once men lose their balls, they can't really make testosterone. They can make a little. So once men are on steroids, it's hard to turn back. But for women, there has been good success in turning back. There's a variety of ingredients besides maca that I recommend in my book. One of them being, for example, like PGX is the way it's, the blood sugar balancer I just talked about, the root, in the stores it's called PGX. There's a couple capsules, you can read the instructions. But what happens is what we've seen in the research, after 3 months of PGX to help balance blood sugar, people's hormones start going into balance. Why? Because let's say I gave you a pill to cure you of a headache. You take that pill, but you keep hitting yourself in the head with a hammer. Pill's worthless. So I can give you some extra supplements that will help your adrenal gland function better and make the hormones. But if you keep getting stressed out, then your adrenal gland will never heal itself and start making the right amount of hormones. The number one stressor to our adrenal glands is not the traffic, it's not our jobs, it's not our relationships. The number one stressor is, what do we do when we're stressed? We eat the processed carbohydrates. The processed carbohydrates spike and drop, and then your cortisol levels shoot up as if you're being chased by a bear. And it happens 4 or 5 times a day. It's just, this is what our society has driven us to. So there's a few more things besides just taking maca, although that can be very helpful symptomatically. Getting to the cause is looking at various conditions. I've looked at a few of them tonight. Yes?
Please spell the herb that restores a man's testosterone levels.
Tongkat Ali, Tongkatali. Tongkat Ali, the Latin word is, I forget the Latin word. Now, I have men give me amazing testimonials on this stuff, and sometimes it didn't work. And I go, well, there's other reasons too. And generally, when a man's testosterone levels have dropped, it means that his digestion has been compromised a long time ago. Meaning stress, exhausted adrenal. Every time your cortisol levels go up, your body stops making enzymes. You can't digest your proteins. If you can't digest your proteins, you can't make dopamine that keeps you awake so that you can rebuild your testosterone. So they all go, dopamine and testosterone are like hand in hand. All ADD and ADHD symptoms are inhibited dopamine function. So anybody who's stressed or has ADD symptoms, which I would consider most men these days, what is women's biggest complaint? He doesn't listen. He gets tired real quickly. He can't keep his attention. Doesn't remember things, loses stuff. Okay, so that's more me personally. But what happens when you have symptoms of stress, you can't digest your protein. So along with all my suggestions, I recommend my basic little wellness program of it explains it in the book why, but lemon and aloe vera in the morning to cleanse your body, mineral supplement that activates your enzymes, and easy to digest protein. Easy to digest proteins, your protein shakes. The one I do not recommend is the soy. Soy shakes are terrible for you. They have all that estrogen in them. But you can get protein shakes from dairy, whey and casein, but it only works, in my experience with thousands of people with this one, if it's undenatured. Undenatured means they haven't processed it with high heat. 90% of everything you buy in a health food store and beyond that are going to be processed with heat. If they don't say undenatured or denatured way, undenatured way, then it's really almost worthless for your brain. So on the flip side, some people go, okay, I don't want any dairy. Then you can go to, there's a lot of companies now have a product called sprouted brown rice, which is easy to digest as a protein. And your protein always needs a fat. Your best fat is coconut fat, coconut oil. There's all this bad press on the best stuff, ironically. But coconut oil is a super, super food. It immediately causes your body to get into the fat-burning mode. It's a fat your body immediately starts to utilize as energy. Now think about what happens when my body goes into fat burning. Then the little bit of sugar that's in the shake doesn't go to the muscles. It goes right to the brain. And that's a little bit of sugar, and the protein goes right to the brain with it. So you want to give the energy to your muscles by having a little fat that your body can digest, and then the amino acids of the protein go right into your brain and start making the brain chemicals. So you always want to have a balance of your protein, fats, and carbohydrates in your shake. Not too much of one. It's a simple balance, almost equal each.
We have one more minute before
Okay.
I have to close the program. If people wake up depressed, does protein at night help them?
Well, there is a program, actually it's, if you wake up depressed, it's not protein that's missing, it's your blood sugars dropping in the night. And after 2 or 3 months of balancing your blood sugar, usually that will go away, but the most unknown supplement for anybody who's depressed, the most powerful thing is lithium orotate. This is not lithium they give to psychotics, this is not lithium they give to bipolar. This is something that's over the counter, and maybe 2% of our population knows about it, because if somebody promoted it, other than me, I told everybody about it, but it's a little drop in the bucket. You'd have no need for antidepressants, period. Lithium orotate. Lithium is the mineral that activates the enzymes to make dopamine and serotonin in your brain. I've done this with thousands of people who've gone off their antidepressants, one with a good foundation diet, but then they take the lithium orotate, just 4.5 milligrams a day. There's about 3 or 4 companies on the web that carry it. All this information is at my website, marsvenus.com, where I explain this in greater detail. But for anybody who's depressed or suicidal or mood imbalances, serotonin imbalances, lithium orotate in small doses, it's over the counter. You do not need to ask a doctor about it. The doctor will say, oh my God, they're all trained to think it's this dangerous mineral because they give out dangerous doses. They are the ones who give out the dangerous form and the dangerous doses, and therefore it's illegal to buy it unless you have a doctor who says, your problem's so bad that I'm going to give you this toxic mineral. The mineral is not toxic. It's the doses they give. And there's another form of lithium that will go right to your brain called lithium orotate that's very inexpensive, 3 months supply for like $18. And I've had neighbors, friends, so forth, go off their antidepressants. Why didn't somebody tell me this about this? Because there'd be no need for prescriptions or antidepressant drugs, which is one of the biggest selling drugs out there. Anyway, don't mean to lean on that. Everybody can take their own choices, but it's great to know these alternatives are there and they're available, at least still they're available. And thank you for being here tonight, because it's your presence and your openness that keeps these things available to us. Good night.
John.
Good night.
I'm going to ask John to stay for more questions. I just need to close the program, and then we can have the book signing. Our thanks to John Gray for his comments here today. We also thank all of you for being here and our listening audience as well. And now, the meeting of the Commonwealth Club of California commemorating its 108th year of enlightened discussion is adjourned.